they go and marry someone else?
Yep, that is the ageless, timeless question, and we are here to talk about it today.
Yes, yes. So if you're out there listening to us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, please chime in. Like if you have a question or comment or whatever, please, we would love to hear any questions you have. Before we get into that topic, we always highlight a nonprofit that is out there doing the work and helping people. And this month's that we're doing is ACT Abuse, because it is Domestic Violence Month. So abuse counseling and treatment is one of the organizations that does help people who are in abusive relationships.
It is good to talk about it because there are people who don't know where to turn. So I'm happy that we're highlighting this charity in the month of October.
Yes, definitely. So, any of you, have you been out there in a relationship and you're like, you think it's going to work, but then it doesn't?
And especially when the aftermath is that person who you felt like you fixed up has moved on to the next person.
Yes. Yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not, because we get into this like, am I not good enough?
Yeah. I saw a saying, it was a while back, and how sayings resurface every once in a while, that just because we had the same man doesn't mean we had the same man. And that is so true.
Yes. Yeah. So that just because, say it again.
Just because we had the same man does not mean we had the same man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm interpreting that means that sometimes when you're in a relationship, it breaks up and then he goes and he's with someone else, that sometimes people have learned their lesson or they've matured.
That, or they're more compatible with that other person. It seems like there's some people who, when we get in relationships, they make I like to call it a mistake or error, of trying to mold that person into the vision that they had of a partner. And so if it didn't work out and they say, this is too much, I can't be who this vision that you have, and then they end up with someone else who just allows them to be themselves, then of course it's not the same man, because he's not like feeling confined of, okay, I gotta make sure I fit this mold. He's able to kind of be himself.
So, and sometimes it's not just all about you in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of, yeah. And like you said, sometimes also it's that compatibility, but also, when you went into the relationship, what did you expect? What did you set as importance for you? Because you cannot change another person.
Absolutely, 1,000%. If you watch all the old TV shows, you know, young girls, they create this list.
Right.
These are the things that I want. It's going to be this. He has to be this. He has to be that. Da, 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 da. Create this long list. Essentially, they want to be Frankenstein and just like build a man. um, and you really, it's difficult to build a list on everything you want.
Right.
And I haven't said this in a long time, maybe last year. It's easier to seek a partner based on your hard nose. Like, what is your hard? Absolutely not.
Right.
That gives your partner the freedom to be them, because they don't feel like they have to meet this build that you've put together.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a hard no, then we don't walk into it at all.
Right. And you don't settle. I mean, I've done that where I've been in a relationship and the person told me, even I think maybe the first couple of dates or whatever, they were not going to marry again.
Mm-hmm.
and then you think, oh, I'm going to change that person. But that did not happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And then suppose he goes off and then he marries the next person. What
Yes.
do you do? That is probably gut wrenching, and just, it can tear you apart to think that this person told me that they do not want to ever marry again.
Right.
And I'm like, some people might stick it out for a little while just to see if they can kind of,
Right.
change that. And when you finally like, okay, we're done, whoever walks
Right.
away, and then you find out 2 years later that that person married, that's like, wow. Like you said, it's automatically, well, what did I do?
Right.
What's wrong with me?
Right.
He didn't want to marry me. When in actuality, it could be that he just put that out there on Front Street as, hey, don't look at this being the end result, because he's harmed from the previous marriage or scared,
Right.
but is just looking for a safe space to land. And it's okay for you to put your hard no up and say, I'm not going to wait around for that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I was just thinking, and then sometimes people are in that transition period,
Mm-hmm.
that they're still trying to heal.
Yeah.
With that transitional relationship on helping that person heal.
Yeah. Instead of
Yes.
focusing on, I'm going to get you to marry me.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then, and when it doesn't work out, you also have to really say to yourself, well, maybe that person wasn't for me. Maybe they were for me for that time period, but now in this new, yeah, you can't get so stuck.
So it also could be that the person that woman could be a potential trigger of what he just left.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically we all have a type, right?
Right.
Especially when you come out of a relationship, it's that physical build of a type that most people have.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what's in his mind.
Right.
You're just looking at the physical. So if they go with that type and it's like, oh, it's more of the same, I just left that in my marriage, I absolutely don't want that, then that's a thing. But if they go and find someone that's, their type, but the personality is nowhere close to that fear place, because I don't think we give men enough credit that they do have trauma, they do have fear, they are very sensitive beings. In fact, most men are more sensitive than us women, but they're just not allowed to express that. So they can feel that nervousness, and they can date you for 10 years and never marry you. And when you finally had enough and leave, it may be 1 year later when they go and marry the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Because she gave him a safer space to be, possibly.
Right. Possibly. Yeah. And you're right that you're in a relationship and you're going for years. And then, there's this societal view on when are you guys getting married?
Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. And I do feel like that as young people today, they're getting married later on in life. They're not trying to rush it.
Yep. And you can tell generationally where we're coming to. If you think about, 30s and 40s and 50s, they were marrying off between the ages like 14 and 16. And, because sometimes women were property at that point. And that's another day for another discussion. But then we fast forward to, the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's, you marry your high school sweetheart. So between 18 and like 22, if you weren't married by 25, everybody's looking at you like, ooh, what's wrong with you?
Right, exactly.
But now it's women are, you know what? I need my career to be on point. I want to make sure that my mental space is good. I want to, build, I want to do all of these things, and marriage can come when it comes.
Right. I think now the pressured time is sometimes around 30.
Mm-hmm.
It's when women feel, somewhat pressure because they feel like their baby producing is tick-tocking. But what do you do when you're like, society is saying you should get married, or your parents, your family?
Mm.
And I think first thing is to be upfront with
Right.
what exactly do I want? Why do I really want to get married? Why do I not want to get married?
Yeah. You focus on, what's in this for me, and what is this relationship looking like? Because no matter how much your parents, your family, your friends want you to be married to this person, because they will always get the best version of this person in public.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it is that's happening in your home that will give you a cue of, hey, I want this for the long term, or this is absolutely nothing that I want for the long term. And to be honest, if they go out and marry someone else, you may have dodged a bullet, because, hey, great, you settle for that. I don't want to.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think you really have to, like, if marriage is something that's important to you, I know on this go around for me, marriage was extremely important for me. Make that stated out in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because why play the cat and mouse game if the end result is really not to catch the mouse? You
Right.
just wanted the chase. Because if that's the case, there are people out there that just want to date.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the one that want to marry, just like, you said late, early in your dating career, somebody told you, hey, I don't want to get married.
Right.
That's helpful to know.
Right. Right. That is. But what if I know that there's some who are just waiting, they're wanting their boyfriend to propose.
Hmm.
Yes. What do they do? Well, I think number one, I think is to be honest and to say it.
Yes. Don't play the mind game, because no one's a mind reader.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then I know that some people believe in giving deadlines, ultimatums, adding more pressure to the pressure cooker.
And that's not it. Those are the people who go in and take the radiator cap off before the engine has cooled down.
Exactly.
And it just explodes.
Right. Right. And then there's the other thing of on a newer aspect is asking the man to marry.
That's something that I did. And
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, I honestly, all of growing up, I've always said marriage was the last thing that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
Literally, I was not looking to be married. I said I didn't want to get married till after I was 40, because I was like, I feel like after 40, you've done, everything that you wanted to do in life. And then this man comes along, because I worked on me and got my life together.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, this is it. I felt it. This is what I knew. And I was like, hey, it wasn't a big production. I didn't need for the world to see. It was literally, I purchased a Build-A-Bear with a wedding dress on. And he picked out his ring and he didn't even know it. And I put the ring on it and I handed it to him, and it says, will you marry me? He was like, okay. And here we are, 20 years later.
Yes.
But you have to know what you want. You have to know what you have in order to make those decisions.
Hmm.
And there are people that say that they will count the grains of sand on a beach by hand, one by one, before they would ask a man to marry them. And to that woman, I would say, great. Hopefully you find what you want and what you need. But for some people, it's you making the move versus being angry and waiting, because if you're waiting and you're angry, you're less likely to get that proposal.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it's good to throw, like I said, to be open and honest.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, and I know recently, I mean, I did that this year, and I was like, I want to be married, yeah, and I was open and honest about it, and of course, he proposed, which I'm so excited, but yeah, because it's what I wanted,
And
and
don't just breeze over that.
I,
Don't just breeze over it. You're engaged
I
because
know,
you spoke up for what it is that you want.
want,
You didn't play the cat and mouse game so that he goes off and marry the next girl because he doesn't know if that's what you want.
right,
You let him know this is what I want. So he married this girl,
right,
not the next girl.
exactly, which is, it's so interesting. That's how, in our minds, and there, even as women, we weren't taught to go after what we want, to
Right.
speak out honest truth.
Yeah. That's it's so black or white that it's scary. Either we're the one that we don't speak up because we've always been told that a lady shuts her mouth, crosses her legs, and does what she's told. And then you have the rebellious one that says, I'm not going to shut my mouth. I
Mhm.
am going to uncross my legs and I'm going to do what I want to do. And that can come off a little too abrupt. But if you can meet those two somewhere in the middle, um, then we can get that. Like, asking the question, how can I make my man commit?
Mm.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, you really want to make someone commit? I mean, in all honesty, couples sometimes say, women say, how can I make him just focus on me, or or not focus on anyone else? In
mhm,
reality, you want your partner, if whether there's 50 million other women in the room, you want them to choose you, to look at you and to choose you, not for you to make them do it.
absolutely. You make the bed. You don't make people do things.
Right. Right.
That's such a to ask that question. Just that makes you really look at that woman and ask her, what is it about you that you love about yourself?
Hmm.
Because the making of someone to commit to you is saying that I need to be filled by this person and I need them to make me feel wanted or whole. And if they're not doing that just on their own, then you got to reevaluate that whole relationship.
Right. Right. And you got to decide if this is something for you or this is something not for you. Because just because it looks like, and it comes in a pretty package, with abs and maybe a fancy car, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is for you.
Exactly. And there's always going to be someone waiting in the wings that will just take the pretty package on the outside with all the gunk on the inside.
Hmm.
That's just a reality. Oof, I hate to even bring these two up, but just, the couple that's always on the news, the Blueface and Krishan, and then there's this girl Jada,
Right.
and he goes back and forth between these two girls, and it's crazy because they're settling for the exterior, even though he's showing the gunk and
Right.
junk from the inside. But they're okay with settling because they are able to say that they have, that's my man. I have somebody on my side. You That's a prime example of you can't make anyone commit. If a man wants you, he will commit to you. You don't have to submit to him. You need to submit to yourself in
Hmm.
order to really have that intuition to know, is that for me?
Right.
Does, you know, yeah, we can go down that rabbit hole. Oof.
Yeah. So a man that goes between two women, he hasn't chosen. Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't be in a relationship with a man who didn't choose me.
Oh, yes. And another prime example couple that's really been piping hot, right?
Right.
Jada and Will.
Yes.
this is a situation where these two at some point committed to each other,
Right.
or one committed more than the other and the other one caught up.
Right.
And here we are. What do they say? They've been married since '07, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Like almost what, 15 years?
Yeah. So thinking that long back, where one didn't really want to get married,
Right.
but settled and said, "Hey, I'll do it."
Mm-hmm.
Because of whatever traumas or whatever's going on in their life. 23 years. There you go. Because I
23
don't
years.
do
Yeah.
math. Me and
And,
math are not friends.
and maybe they wanted to, both to get married, but you know that they are due to life circumstances and changes
Yeah,
and popularity and all this other stuff that got into their
definitely.
marriage.
Oh, definitely. And, with the things that she's saying now, did he know that? She's saying now, "Hey, I never wanted to be married," but is that something that she verbalized to him
Right.
versus hinting around? So that's another part why some people do marry the next one, is because the hinting around doesn't work. And
Mm-hmm.
let's look at this marriage, 23 years, 3 children later, four, if four technically. And they're not in a great place, because although they did commit, you can't just go with a marriage because one party wants to do it,
Right.
or the fear of they will marry the next girl, because that happens, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I let this person go because they're making me feel safe right now while I'm young, if I let them go, then they're going to be with someone else. But you
Mm-hmm.
got to think down the long term, because marriage is about the long game.
Right.
It's not
Exactly.
about now.
Right. And you know what else I was just thinking in that relationship? I know at some point they must have decided to open it up. And sometimes people think, well,
Right.
we're just not gelling. Something's going wrong. Maybe we need to do something new. Maybe we should open up the relationship. When you open up the relationship and you already have problems, it's just going to
Yeah.
multiply the problems. It is not a solution.
Not at all. It's like cutting a body open that has cancer in it and you didn't know, and it spreads.
Right.
That's why doctors do tests, i.e., therapy, counseling. You find out what's going on in there before you make a sound decision and a long term discussion, because that also came up as a huge bump in the road.
Right. Right. And just because someone, and sometimes people end up actually having these affairs, but they're like, well, really, we talked about it. You said to go do something different.
Well, not another person. Oh my gracious. Yeah. And some people fall into that category of, if I don't give my partner what he wants, your partner will ask for a threesome. And if I don't do it, then they'll leave me and they'll just
Mm,
go and be with the next person.
mm.
You really gotta, you said it earlier, you have to stick to your standards. And if that is one of your hard no's, or if that is against your values, really think about that. If one of your values is to not invite people into your relationship, and you, because your partner asks you more than once, you go against your value, I want you to think about what your partner is thinking about you. You don't hold firm to your values. So why would I marry you? Because you can't even trust yourself to be honest with yourself.
Right.
And that's not like no philosophical thinking. I really want people to think about that. Your partner studies you, they know you. If you go against yourself, why wouldn't you go against them?
Right. And then inside it becomes a house divided because
Hmm.
there's one part of you that wants this, one part that wants this. And then what really happens at the end, and many times, is you end up losing yourself.
Yes.
You know, he's gone, and then you wake up and you don't even know the person in the mirror, which is the saddest thing.
Mm, yep. And then once you're lost, he'll probably go and marry the next girl.
Right.
That's just the reality because you didn't stick to your morals. You didn't stick to who you are and stand firm and say, no, I'm not going to do it. Because for all you know, they just threw that out there because maybe they were scared to stay in a committed relationship just to see what you would do. But you say you say no, then they look at you like, oh my gracious, that's my rock. This
Right.
woman will hold me down because this woman stood firm on what she believed. So I absolutely can trust her to hold me down.
Hmm. Right. Right. And that is what's the juice in the gel that you said what a marriage is.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been a wonderful discussion.
Yeah, it absolutely because it's just so it's a necessary discussion. It's a necessary topic because I know that there are a lot of women and some men. You know, I'm gonna give y'all credit, but there are a lot of women who are crushed inside because they're watching their exes living their best lives with someone else.
Hmm.
The life that they felt like they should have had, that they're living with someone else. And sometimes women feel like, well, I groomed you up for the next woman.
Right.
That's not always a real thing, ladies. You know.
It's not. It's not. He's gone and he's with someone else. And I need to also say, it's, you know, if you're sitting there watching your ex with someone else, you're spending your time watching them. And mostly that is through social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like you're not living your own life,
Right.
you know? And if you say, well, they keep popping up in my feed or whatever, well, block it. Block
Yep.
them and all the people associated with that, or don't, or even get off Facebook, get off social media. But it's not going to make you feel better seeing him with another person. That's just going to continue to get in your head this and that and this and that. You really do need to stop, stop communicating, stop watching him.
I like that. We had a commenter just says, block him so you are not blocking your own blessings.
Exactly.
I love that. And so, what about the women who have been in a committed relationship for years? How can she avoid putting that pressure on that man?
Mm. Well, I do think, I now honestly think you need to have the honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it also depends what age you are, what you want, because it's different at 50,
Mm-hmm.
my age versus when you're 25, 35, and maybe you want to get married and have kids, and this person does not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a thing. I do believe exactly what you said. Have that honest conversation, and you can put a timeline in your mind
Right.
without pressuring him.
Right.
It's okay that when y'all have that conversation, you can say, if say you are 25 and you guys have been dating for a while, you can always say, my goal has always been to have children by the age of X, Y, and Z, be married by this time frame. Um, and you can just leave it right there. That's your goal because you made that known.
Right.
And if you're approaching that timeline and you don't see any signs of a true commitment, then it's okay for you to walk away and just say, you know, I want to make sure that both of us are getting what we need from this relationship.
Hmm.
And if we don't want to have a tense or bitter relationship, then we have to do what we truly feel is right for us.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm on that path of marrying and you're not, then we have to start thinking about how do we divide us up so
Right.
that maybe our distant friendship could be a thing, or but it's unfair that I hold myself back from
Mm-hmm.
my goal. And if you just all of a sudden in 3 months get a ring, I would say be very cautious of that ring, because that's possibly the pressure that you weren't trying to put on that
Right.
he may have felt. And you don't want that either.
Mm-hmm. Right. You want him to really want to get married. And sometimes, like you said, therapy helps, because sometimes people have in their concept of marriage what they saw growing up. And
Mhm.
they're just like, I just don't want to, I don't think I could be a good husband or father or mother or whatever because of I saw XYZ. Or in my family history, not a, people say, yeah, it's just a line of divorce. Or people say, marriage is just a piece of paper.
Oh, gracious, yes.
Yeah, yeah. But in your mind, if you feel like, hey, marriage is something more than just a piece of paper. It is, it's a spiritual, it's a commitment that we have to, then you guys have to have that discussion.
Absolutely. Honesty is going to be the best thing in the world. And yes, people who are dating can and sometimes should absolutely seek therapy or counseling,
Right.
because you will learn things about yourself and each other that can be helpful in deciding, is this truly where I need to? Literally, the first year I had my retreat, we had a couple there that after 3 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, they just finally broke up this year.
Mm.
And one thing that he told me is, I learned a lot about her while we were there. I learned a lot about me while we were there. And while they tried to force things,
Right.
they now knew these things that had bubbled to the surface that they had a choice to get into counseling to address, or it was just going to wedge them further apart. And that's exactly what it did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I personally see counseling as not to solve a couple's issue, I mean, that does happen. But the main goal, I think the main goal for couples counseling is to help each person see the other person.
Right.
That is my main goal, is for each of you to see the authentic of the other person. Because with that knowledge, you can decide, hey, is this for me or is this not for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. And that's just, critical. So, yeah. So if you're out there and you're thinking, as our topic, so why men marry the next girl? That's because sometimes they do, but it does not mean that it's something that how can you need to be stuck at, in the sense of looking at, oh my gosh, I'm not going to find anyone, but maybe that person is not for you.
That's right. And maybe you're the girl that the other next guy is waiting to marry.
Yes, which happens a lot. Yes.
It does. So don't force it. Don't put that square peg in that round hole, because eventually it will pop out.
Exactly. All right, then. Well, we're going to take a commercial break and we'll be back and to tell you what upcoming shows we have in the future for you all. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you in a relationship with someone that you see often, but you feel so disconnected with them? Bringing intimacy back can help you bring the intimacy back to your relationship. BIB is dedicated to inspire, enlighten, and encourage intimate connections. Live shows, weekly guest speakers with over 29,000 downloads. We can help promote your products and services, grow your business and clientele with BIB. Want to become part of the BIB family? You can now sponsor with us.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy Show, where intimacy is real. Well, that was just a wonderful topic, and I'm so glad that we had it.
Absolutely. But I was just thinking, because we were talking about compatibility, and I know that you have quizzes on compatibility.
Yes,
So,
I do. I do. I have what we call intimacy quizzes. Intimacy quizzes in the sense of how intimate as a couple you are, and it helps, it matches people up, but also intimacy in yourself. So if you're thinking about, oh, how compatible, or are we truly, because an intimacy is more than just sex, as we know. It's that emotional, the communication, that activities, a variety of different things. So definitely just go onto the Bringing Intimacy Back website and check out the intimacy quizzes.
awesome, awesome. And we have some amazing shows that are coming up in the near future. So on October the 26th, we have Exploring Intimacy with clinical sexologist Shauna Harris. On November the 2nd, we have Daniel James, the owner of the Prime Life Project. And then on November the 9th, we have Godly Relationships. That's going to be a very good one. And then we're going to welcome everybody to start preparing for the first set of holidays. So November the 16th and the 23rd, we are going to be taking a short recess while we prepare for the holidays as well.
Right then, yes, and that's if you're out there and you're also thinking about as a couple retreats, just to let you know, we do have one coming up in next September, a Christian retreat to help couples who may be struggling and they just want some extra tips on how to keep that intimacy alive. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So if you've been awesome, if you've been out there listening, please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and we will see you guys next week. This has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7th book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share,